Hi guys, welcome back to the James Bond Show with your host Krazy Kajeevie with no fears, limits or substitutes. The bad boy of James Bond is back. Thank you for joining me with this episode, guys, titled Should James Bond Be Black? My thoughts and opinions. Before I go on, please support the channel by dropping a like. If you watch the content and you enjoy it, at least you can drop a like. It helps the algorithms and get this important message out there to the wokies. Also, if you can leave a comment, that would be fantastic as well. And of course, share it with your friends and make sure you subscribe and tap that bell for notifications. That way you will know when I've uploaded a new video. Okay, should James Bond be black? This is the burning, raging question that just keeps hitting the internet by storm, and more storm. It never really goes away. And of course, Idris Elba is always the man that's mentioned about being the next James Bond. And now they throw in a Reggie Jean Page. And I don't really care if I've pronounced his name properly. Sorry, guys, but I just really don't. I've seen him act in Bridgerton. I don't think he's a strong actor. I don't think Idris Elba is a strong actor. Anyway, regardless of the colour, but this video is not going to be a rant. This video is not about racism. This video is not about deconstructing really bad potential casting choices. This video is about showing who James Bond really is. And also what I'm glad to present here is how, for my research, I wanted to see the opinion of black people. So I had a look around, looked on Google, etc., and I found a fantastic journalist named Nola, I hope I pronounced her surname correctly here, Nola Ojomu. Nola Ojomu. Now, she did an article, the article was for Metro. She's also done articles, she's a freelance journalist, I believe, and she does articles for the Daily Mail, and she's been on Hollywood TV shows, etc., talking about Hollywood celebrities. I think she's a very well experienced journalist. She's been doing this for many years, and I think she's fantastic. And the reason this is so important is to show that it's not just white people with toxic masculinity or racism that actually care about this subject matter. And even if they're not truly big James Bond fans, this is just about looking at logic. Logic in support of who is not just James Bond, but who is Ian Fleming's James Bond. And why does that character mean so much to us? And would it be because of how Ian Fleming described him? And because of the way Ian Fleming described him from his own personal experiences, that is what James Bond is. He's the summation of all the little bits and the big bits. And I think Nola has done a fantastic job. Now, what I'm going to do, guys, the article I've read of hers, I'm going to leave it in the description below. So I really highly recommend it. It's not a massively long article. Take you a couple minutes to read, if that. Go in and check it out. Go in and have a look because it's really good and it's just logical. Now, she throws her support behind Idris Elba as potentially being a new spy in a different series, and totally agree with it. Fantastic. And she wants black characters, new black characters, to be created for black actors, and for traditional characters like James Bond to be left to those that enjoy him, both black and white, exactly how Ian Fleming and the film producers of the past have created him. And I could not agree with her more. So I want to look at a few points that she mentioned in her article. And she spoke about how in 1964 novel, You Only Live Twice here. I'll go through her exact points. That his mother, James Bond's mother, was revealed to be Swiss. Of course, her name was Monique Delacroix. And his father was announced as a Scotsman, a Scottish man from the Highlands near Glencoe. And that's exactly right. That's spot on. Also, I will go on to say that even though the exact definition and look of Hoagie Carmichael isn't the most 100% spot on thing, it's still a good little guidance to go by and to let us know that in his mind, that's how Ian Fleming saw James Bond. Now, in the novels Live and Let Die and Moonraker, Fleming described Bond as looking like Hoagie Carmichael in both of those novels. Now, this is what I really like too. So this point too here is Fleming himself, this is by Nola, Fleming himself had Scottish roots and spent time in Glencoe as well growing up. And we see those aspects of Scotland, especially in the Daniel Craig era, in Spectre, Skyfall and Spectre, respectively, I should say. Now, what I really like is her other point here, and I've kind of sometimes paraphrasing and just jotting a few little points down. Fleming used many of his own interests to help create and shape James Bond, and some of those were, it can even seem small, but it tells you the British nature and the background of this man, including, and who doesn't love scrambled eggs? So, and he writes about it in just about every novel. He goes on, and I love it, he goes on about Bond eating scrambled eggs. Scrambled eggs, golf, gambling, all come from Fleming's taste, and Bond uses the same toiletries and cigarettes as Ian Fleming preferred himself, and that's spot on too. And these help shape the character, and it would be very hard to understand how these facets would suddenly shape a black James Bond character. So I really like that. All right, let's have a look at a few more points here, guys. Okay, Nola went on to say, she went on to write that would Disney, I really love this point, would Disney go and would they change Snow White? I mean, look at the name. Would they make Snow White Snow Brown? And remember, this is a black woman who's not racist, who obviously loves her own race, but she's just using common sense here, which is fantastic. Also, which is a great point, which I never thought of before, would they, for the diversity and progressiveness or inclusiveness, basically the marketed words to destroy what we already know, would they go and make Rocky a female? And if they did make, as she pointed out, if they did make Rocky a female, that would completely change the entire character. Now, even though if Bond still remains a male, a black male, it's still, as the evidence provides from the novels and from Fleming's creation and the films, it still completely changes the character. Because no matter how much you look at it, you then have to be realistic and know that any black James Bond character would have to have, whether it's 2, 3, or whatever generations down the line, they would have to have a past from an African nation. That's just, or if it's Mexican, from Mexico. That's just fact. And therefore, that is not recognisable as Ian Fleming's James Bond. Now, another point I wanted to touch on, and I have spoken about this on the James Bond show before. At the start of every James Bond film, after we see the action in the pre-title sequence, we get the credits. And in the credits, basically the first thing that comes up is, say whatever actor it is, say Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is Ian Fleming's James Bond. Pierce Brosnan is Ian Fleming's James Bond. Timothy Dalton is Ian Fleming's James Bond. Idris Elba, Regé-Jean Page is... You can't say that they are going to be Ian Fleming's James Bond. So again, this is not a racial issue. This is just common sense. And the real thing here is, why is it just James Bond currently? Because others have been targeted already, but why is there such a consensus by, let's be honest, a liberal left mentality, and these people are never true James Bond fans? And I'll prove that right now. You can't be a true James Bond fan and respect the history, which is James Bond, and want a black James Bond. Because the moment you do that, you're saying, I don't care about the history of James Bond. So you can't truly love the character if you want to change it. And then you have to accept that if you are making or you are vouching for a black actor, say Idris Elba, to be James Bond, that you have changed the character and he's no longer James Bond. So what does that do to an already inbuilt fan base that now in 2022 is celebrating 60 years of James Bond? It completely destroys what we know as James Bond, and that's not good for anyone. How would that affect the box office? We have to be realistic about this as well. Also, like I was touching on, who is this for? Like, who is this actually for? Why are these people not pushing for black characters to be changed white? Imagine the uproar if they were going to, if people or white reporters, influencers, YouTubers like myself, if we were pushing for Shaft to be white, for Creed to be white, which really he came from a white character in Rocky, Blade to be white, Black Panther to be white, they would go absolutely mental. So why is the same outrage not accepted and deemed racist when it's a black actor being pushed for James Bond? It doesn't make any sense at all, guys. And here's one more point I want to touch on. For anyone to say or act as though they're offended by James Bond fans wanting James Bond to remain white. And remember, it's James Bond fans. It's not racist James Bond fans. It's James Bond fans who are also black. There's 4 admins on my Facebook group, James Bond Fans Would Love. Come and join us, guys. James Bond Fans Would Love. 4 admins. Me, I am the only white English Caucasian guy. The other 3 admins, and I love these guys, and hi guys, is Nick Lopez from Argentina. Okay? Gershwin J. Quintine, black, from Trinidad and Tobago. And my friend, he doesn't like his real name being pushed around, so I'll just call him Brother Man. Brother Man, who is Korean. So we're in a collective, progressive mix. And guess what? We all value freedoms, opinions. Even if we disagree, we agree that people should have opinions. And Brother Man, he hates No Time to Die. I actually really like No Time to Die, even though I'm not a fan of some decisions in it. He loves Die Another Day. I'm not a big Die Another Day fan. No, I promise him I will give it another go. But what we all agree on is James Bond is the character we love because of his foundations. White British imperialistic foundations. And we don't want that changed. Because when you change it, you kill James Bond. And they've already done that in the physical. You don't want to do that, I guess, in a way, in the spiritual. And the iconic vision of who James Bond is a white British man. And so when people say, oh, I'm offended you don't want a white man, well, you know what I am? I'm offended that people want to take the character I love and which so many of you guys love, and the James Bond show here with Krazy Kajeevie will always defend, and that's why you guys come back here. And I know that people that don't subscribe to the channel, don't like the channel, I know that even though they're too afraid to do that and show support for me, they agree with me that James Bond should be white and never change. God bless, guys. Till next time, keep on bonding and say hi to your mum for me. Oh yeah, one more thing. Elba, Idris Elba, get me my Jim Beam.